I'm leaving this meeting.
Oh my God. I started watching Succession.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay, so now all the time. This meeting is over. Fuck off. I just want to say it at the end of every meeting. Everyone. I want to say at the end of every phone call, at the end of everything.
You should.
Sitting at the dinner table. This dinner is over. Fuck off. Why not? I think it's catchy.
It's very catchy.
It's to be a new trend.
You could put that in your screenplays too instead of fade out. It just says fuck off. That's one way to hook the readers.
I think we need to now create a new screenwriting software. That's how it ends. And
Yeah.
just make that the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to be a badass writer? Fuck off.
You wouldn't be reckless unless you were telling everyone around you to fuck off. Okay, so I guess now is when we say this is not a PG podcast.
No, it's not.
It is not. You should know by the title that it is not. There's no PG thing that's reckless.
No.
Sometimes we're reckless with our own reputations and careers and everything.
Well, hi, Jeannie. I haven't seen you since last year. It's a really bad joke.
People say that.
I know you do. I know you do.
God.
See Pet Peeves episode.
Oh, that's right. It was in the Pet Peeves. See you next year. Oh God, I want to slap everybody who says that. Just so our listeners know, it is 6:45 my time. So it's been a day already.
Yeah.
A little punchy. And unfortunately, I'm over at my construction site because there's actually better internet here. And I have no snacks. I have no liquor.
No.
I have water and I have this.
That was easy.
That's it. I did pack that.
Essentials.
The essentials. I have.
Now you need to make a button. You need a button that says "fuck off" now.
My reckless creative mug. Do you think we could get Matt to put that on a mug? Probably not.
Probably not. But when we did our podcast van, that could be our vanity plate. It just says "fuck off."
Oh my God. Yes. Oh, okay. So listeners, we need you for this plot. Matt told us that if we get 100,000 downloads, he's going to buy us an RV van with the big Reckless Creatives logo on the side that we can go on a road trip across the country. So we just need 100,000 downloads because we're going to hold him to it. Once you say it out loud, once you tweet it, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot, I need to take this call one more time. Listeners, I am in the middle of producing a short. Give me 1 second.
Hey,
John. Oh, that's right. Okay. Oh, that'd be awesome. Oh, cool. Oh, cool. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards anamorphic because from all those references I was showing you. Mm-hmm. Let's do it. All right. Okay. Not a problem. Cool. We'll do. All right. Thanks, Sean. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye. Okay. I'm back.
Okay. How's the short coming? Oh, get that short coming? How's the short?
Which shortcoming are you speaking of mine? It's good. I forgot how much work goes into producing. It's been a fast minute for me, and I enjoy it, and I'm also like, why at the same time. And you can plan, and be prepared to the best of your ability, but it's always the last 48 hours before the first shoot day that there are so many fires, and you just have to be ready to figure it out on the spot. And that's basically what I've been doing for the past 2 days or so.
When do you start shooting?
We shoot Saturday, and we do all of our pickups tomorrow for gear and all that. So I've been going back and forth about production insurance, which is very important to have.
Yeah.
But it's also like you have to have a lot of information, hopefully ahead of time, but it's really hard to get that information from rental houses. And it's like pulling teeth with a lot of them, unfortunately. Like I have one right now where I'm like, I just need this one prop, and we've been going back and forth with them, and they're very like yes, no type answers to us. It's like, I need this like, do you have insurance? Well, not yet, but I need this information from you so I can get the insurance. And they're like, well, we can't give you the information. It's just like, or just weird things. I don't know. It's just insane. But it's all working out. So I was just talking to my DP, JR, who is a gem of a human, and we're just trying to lock in some really cool lenses that have a really cool look to them. But they're on a plane, I think, tonight from Atlanta, and they're like, you might get them tomorrow. We don't know. So
Baby.
pray.
Well,
But
at least they're not like on a boat out
right.
of the
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
Like everything else in the country.
I don't know. Yeah. It's been fun. It's been like really cool to figure out a creative process for myself too through all of this. And I haven't directed in so long, so I'm kind of like figuring
Shaking off
that
the
out.
cobwebs.
Yeah, like I
Did it make you nervous at the thought of jumping back in after not having directed for a while?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I was super excited leading up to our first rehearsal, and the day of the rehearsal, I was very much in my head and started giving direction, which do not do this ever, but I was giving them very inactive directions. Like I was saying, like they're like, this character, when they do this, how should I do it? I'm like, oh, you're passive. And I just kept saying that. And I realized, well, like I was saying, I was like, you idiot. That an actor doesn't want to hear that. So it's just like, all right, guys, like I noticed, I was like, okay, guys, I'm gonna send you home. we'll reconvene because I just had to like shut it down and like clear my head. And then I sent them like an apology note because I was in my head. But no, it's all working out. It's fun and scary and exciting all at the same time.
Well, by the time we have our next Reckless Cruise, you'll be done with the shoot. And
Yeah.
so you can tell us how that all went and how active everyone was.
Yeah. 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 It should be fun. There's gonna be a lot of blood. A
Ooh,
lot of
good.
dumb jokes. And I think it's gonna look really cool. So I'm excited. And I have like a really great team of warriors supporting me on this, which I'm really excited about. And I've had a lot of friends who aren't unable to be here in person, but have been supporting me in other ways, which has been really cool.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And also like trying to do anything during a pandemic is really tough. So
Especially we're on this wave now where there's like a whole tons of more outbreaks and stuff like that. I'm convinced everyone is gonna get this variant, like this one. It's because it's like whipping through faster than a cold whips through.
Yeah.
And my hope, I am not a scientist, so don't listen to me, but my hope is that if we all get this, then maybe we can just, start get a little herd immunity going and we can start getting back to life a little bit.
Yeah, that's a hope. I mean, I've known a lot of people who've gotten COVID. I mean, luckily it was nothing crazy, but I kind of feel left out that I haven't gotten it yet. Like my husband had it, my mom's had it. Like,
Well,
what about me?
you could have gotten it, but maybe you got it with like
Yeah.
no symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what like we were talking about the other day. My husband's like, why haven't we gotten this? And it's like, well, we don't go anywhere. We don't do anything. We literally we don't even go out to eat. And it's not that we don't do anything or go anywhere or go out to eat because of COVID. We live in a country, there's nothing, whatever. We're,
Right. Yeah.
I'm a workaholic. So if I can get COVID through my computer,
Yeah.
then you damn well better be sure I'm going to get it.
Being a workaholic is a different kind of sickness, and we could talk about that, but maybe a different episode.
There ain't no vaccine for that, kids. No booster shots.
You left it at home for that. But anyways, yeah, getting prepped for the short film has going into our topic of this episode about feedback, taking and receiving and giving. I mean, feedback there's been a lot of that on this project.
Yes, and we are finally talking about it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Why not?
And guess what, Sadie Dean, you're never going to believe this. I did a little preparation for it.
Oh my God, because I did not.
Awesome. Well, it's because I've written about it so much over the years, and I'm writing a novel now. So it's been like, just like it's been a hot minute for you directing, it's been a hot minute for me getting feedback on a screenplay, because the last couple scripts was writing with a writing partner. And so it's a different kind of feedback and a different kind of thing. But I love feedback. Probably because I love rewriting. And so let's just start with why notes are important. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I love my script, it's great, blah, blah, blah. And they're nervous to get feedback, or they don't know how to find somebody to give them feedback. So we should talk about that too. But for me, notes are important because I've been in the story for so long in my head and writing it, by myself or with a partner, whatever, that I feel like you don't have a lot of perspective anymore. And you know your character so well, and you need to be sure that when somebody reads it, they get the same vibe. I mean, so for me, I like getting feedback because I want to make sure my
Right.
story makes sense. I want to make sure I'm moving people, they're feeling something. And also if there's like a glaring thing I'm missing, that for some reason I'm not seeing, it's a lot easier for a fresh set of eyes to figure that out.
Yeah.
But one other thing, it's also really good to get good at receiving feedback, because this is such a collaborative business. So if you are sitting in a producer's office, you get to that point in your career when you've sold something and you can't hear negative notes about your work without crying or, getting hostile, telling them this meeting is over, fuck off. You got a problem.
Right. Yeah. And there's also in receiving notes and finding people like within, building that tribe of people that you can trust to give your work to, knowing what questions to ask, because that's also really important in figuring out whatever it is that they're bumping on, and like it's okay to ask why.
When you first started writing and you first got you wrote your first shitty script, because let's face it, your first script is, I don't know anybody who's written a great first script. And I'm not talking about first draft, I'm talking like your very first script. So like the first time you had to figure out like who to get notes from, like, how, I mean, you grew up in LA, so I think your understanding of the industry was probably already a little bit more, advanced than somebody like me who grew up in the country in upstate New York. So like, where did you first find that group or that person that you first got those set of notes from, that you were like, okay, I got some work to do here?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how far back you want to go, I mean, I wrote my first like short script when I was in high school. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, I'm going to write this thing and then I'm going to shoot it with my friends. And that's kind of what I did, but they didn't have any feedback. They were just like, let's do this, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the one, like the most like impactful moment would probably be when I was in film school in my first screenwriting class. It was like screenwriting for beginners, and I had this great instructor, and it was about, he would give these really great writing prompts and be like, listen to the song, what is it about to you, like make a scene out of this. Or write something that you wouldn't write, like, a genre you wouldn't write in. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna try sci-fi, but it was always coming down to like the very specifics of like character motivation, what is the story, what is the world. And then I started, that's kind of like where I was kind of trying to find my voice, I guess, which I feel like I'm still on that journey. But the feedback was just like, oh, it always came back to like, why are you writing this? Like, what are you trying to get across? And that's still like a thing where I'm like, I think I know. I don't know if this is the right answer, which is okay. It's all a process to figure that out. But there was one script that I've been rewriting for a long time that I started in college, and with one of my mentors, and it really came down to like, I kept like racing to the ends and just writing whatever, and he was like, no, like you're giving up, stop, like you have such a great beginning, your second act is pretty solid, why is your third act shit? Like stop doing this. And he kept telling me, just like slow down and just like look at like the story you're telling, like you're avoiding the obvious. And it was really just like honing in again, like on that voice of like, why am I telling the story? Which helped a lot. Like it made me angry at first because, I'm like this young 18, 19-year-old who's like, I know everything. How dare you? But looking back, it's like, oh yeah, that made sense and totally elevated my script.
Yeah. Like I never went to film school. So I didn't have like a network of writers when I first started. I was writing with a friend from college and who didn't have a network either, and so we just like, we did the stupid thing, like, well, I mean, not stupid, but the not as productive thing,
Right.
which was like asking our friends and asking people to read it. Like, just, do you like the story? I remember going to my local bookstore and saying, could you guys know story? Could you guys, somebody read this? And they looked at me like, we don't know anything about screenplays. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I was like, oh, okay. I thought I just asked, and we weren't on Twitter yet. So like, we didn't have that whole kind of network. It was very isolating. This was, I don't know, in 2007 maybe, or something like that. It was right before we joined Twitter. And so then once I got on Twitter, so I knew every note I got then was not something that anyone really understood, story or anything like that. So that didn't go anywhere. But once I joined Twitter, then I met a whole bunch of screenwriters on Twitter and we would exchange screenplays. And I think social media is a great way to connect with other writers who also need feedback on their work. So, and you can also like submit to like Pipeline has a workshop, you could submit to the workshop. This is not a plug, I'm not a plug person, but our staff is really awesome. And if you want to meet our staff, go look at our symposium classes. Like we do all these free sessions. We do all these free
They're
symposium
awesome.
sessions so you can meet our staff, and they know story really well. But anyway, so some people do stuff like that. Like I did. I used to pay for feedback in the beginning because I looked at it as like I was hiring a tutor because I didn't know, and so I wanted to learn from people. I would research and find out their reputation. I wouldn't just, hand my script over and pay somebody who was just sticking a shingle up. There's a lot of those people too.
Yeah.
So, research, make sure they're good and reputable. But once you build your network enough, you've got a lot of peers who also need feedback. And I always would try to find somebody I thought was a little better than me to give me notes. Just because I like to be challenged, and so that's how I Twitter, that's how I found most of my readers. I did an interview years ago. It was the actual funny tidbit. It's the very first time I talked to Doug Richardson on the telephone. So it had to have been 2010. And Doug and I met on Twitter, and I was talking about feedback on one of the script chats or something like that. And Doug goes, I'll talk to you about feedback. And so that was our first phone conversation, was me interviewing him for the article, getting honest feedback, I think is all it's called.
Mhm.
And so I went back and I read it today because I was like, let's see what Doug Richardson, Die Hard 2 guy says about feedback.
Yeah.
And basically, he started off, I pulled a couple quotes out of here. He said, you have to let people know it's safe to tell the truth. Start by giving them permission. And so when I asked him, like, how do you do that? Like, what's the best way to say to somebody, hey, I wanted you to tell me the truth, like keep it raw and real, blah, 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 because people don't really believe that you believe that. Like they think, well, of course I have to tell you that it's great. Like you're going to be mad at me if I don't.
Right. Which is worse. That's like the worst feedback you can get.
I know. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear feedback that my mother would give me, although my mother's pretty harsh. She would tell me, I didn't really get it, Jeanne. And he suggested that you kind of find something in the script that you already know doesn't work. And, but you don't tell them that you already know it doesn't work. and just start talking there. Like, so what did you think about this spot? And see if they'll be honest about it. And then thank them for their honesty. And then that gives them the permission to keep going, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was good advice.
Yeah, I love that advice because it needs to be a safe space for both parties to do that. You both,
Mhm.
because anyone who's giving feedback, you're usually, hopefully, your intention is to help them realize something they maybe weren't noticing on their end, or help them, steer them in the right direction of whatever character development, arcs, whatever it is. But you also want to be as honest as possible. And yeah, it's tough, but having honest feedback is always the best.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to find people who are brutally honest. Like before I give notes to friends, I always say, I'm really brutally honest. For some reason, I'm a very nice person.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when I give notes, I don't think it always comes across as nice, because I give notes the way I want to receive notes. Like,
Yeah.
I want somebody to challenge me. I want somebody to push me. I want them, of course, to point out like what's good or what's working, because those are important notes too, so that you don't mess it up and go
Yeah.
change it.
Right.
But I don't want somebody to just be worried and be like, oh, well, I have to start off by telling her all the good things before I go and tell her some bad things, because I want to just like pump her up. Please don't do that to me.
Yeah.
Not for me. But I think it's also important, though, that you have that conversation with the person who you're giving notes to.
Mm-hmm.
And so you find out what they want. Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for like structure, or are you looking for character development? Like, is there something specific you want me to think about during this read, or are you looking for the whole thing? And how blunt do you want me to be? Because I'm very blunt.
Yeah.
And so what I do if somebody doesn't really want me to be blunt, I
say, fuck off.
This meeting is over. I write up my notes blunt, because that's what I do. And then I go back. I don't just hit send. I like go back and I think, okay, is there a way that I could say this? It still says what I want to say, but just maybe says it in a less staccato kind of fire of bullets way, you know? But it's always nice when I don't have to do that. But my favorite thing that I do when I give notes to my friends, and what I like people to do for me in return, but really, I don't think I've ever had anybody do this for me. My favorite thing to do when I'm giving notes is I print the script out, and then as I'm reading it, I write on the script. I'll circle a line of dialogue, like if it's too on the nose or whatever, but I'd mostly say stuff like, I don't believe, like, you've lost me now. I don't like the character now. Like, I really want them to just drive off a cliff. I don't care if they ever succeed, because they did this and now you've completely lost me. And it's okay to have like crappy characters. I mean, we were just talking about Succession. I mean, it's not like those people are lovely people that I want to have dinner with.
I mean, you kind of do. You kind of do.
I want to have dinner just for the end.
Yeah.
But because I want to hear him say it. But I still want to keep turning the page. I still want to keep watching that next episode. So it's okay to have them do something that's just horrible. But if you're going to do that, you got to figure out a way to still keep the reader engaged. But I write down everything I'm feeling. And then when I send them the email with all my notes, just the basic overall notes of the story and whatever, I tell them, I'm mailing you a physical copy of the script. And just look at it when you get it. And then what's nice is I do not scan it and send it as a PDF. I mail it, because Then they've got a couple of days to calm down after they read my brutal notes, before they get the script in their hand, and then they can thumb through it and see what I'm talking about, and I think it's super helpful. So if I ever ask you for notes, Sadie, Dean, that's the way I would like you to do them for me, please.
Okay. Yeah, I prefer doing notes just like that too. In many of the workshops I've been in, it's very encouraged that you mark up the script. Because also you can see if you have 2, 3, 4 friends, or if you're in a writer's group and they're all marking it up, you could kind of compare and see what's kind of trending in like dialogue. If like they're like, nope, cut that out, and you can see like, if they have similar notes throughout, that kind of helps you give an idea of like, all right, like I have 3 people who are tripping on this one thing, or that just don't agree with this dialogue. I should probably think about using this or changing it up or taking it out. But yeah, I think also like when you're giving notes, it's like you're doing what you can to serve the story. Because at the end of the day, you want them to write the best thing that they can, and you should challenge them. You should want to hopefully be challenged too, to heighten your writing. I've been in I'll share a fun story. I don't know if I've ever shared this before, but when I was in grad school, we had these very intensive workshops, and we were in this one workshop, and you had to give notes. You had to read the notes. We do like table read it, go over it. And this young woman had a script, and I made a note about the use of music. The song I was very familiar with. I was just like, hey, like, I just don't think that this song is being used to the best of its ability in the scene. Maybe find a different song. Here's some examples. Because there's like a karaoke bar thing, but it's also about like a love story, whatever. But it's like, that's not what this song is by this artist. And then it was like another thing of like that this character, every time he'd walk in the bar, all the women would like go gaga over him because of his accent. And I was like, okay, maybe, but I don't see why they are like that. Like, what is it really about him that would make them like, you're making this world not like you want the reality, but you're not giving it to us. Like, it was like this mix. Anyways, I was giving these notes, and I was trying to be very honest and be helpful and have a reason behind why I was giving these notes. And she got up and banged her fists on the table, told me I was wrong, yelled at me, said some expletives at me, grabbed her stuff and left. And
you ever talk to you again?
Actually, I don't think
this meeting is over.
Fuck off. And I just remember like I felt bad too, because I was like, I didn't think I was being mean or anything. I was trying to be helpful. And my mentor, he was like, no, I agree actually with all of your notes. She just doesn't know how to take a note, which she needs to work on, which I've noticed. He's like, and that sucks because she has potential. She just has to learn how to take these notes from her peers. And she was like, not happening.
I mean, there are probably some people who you're going to get notes from who you think, maybe I'm not going to ask them again.
Yeah.
But
that's true. Which is fine.
Yeah, which is fine. And because like I wouldn't like write a rom-com and ask my friend who's a horror writer to give me notes on that. Like there's certain people that are going to be good fits and not fits and whatever. So take that into consideration. Like, I am not the person to give notes on a sci-fi ever. Like, I'm just not. That's not my jam. If you want to give me notes on something dark and twisted, I'm your girl. Although do not email me asking for notes, please. I'm not your girl. I am not. But so when you get notes, do you want people to give you solutions, like options? Like, because sometimes I find that sometimes people give a note and then they think they have to give you the solution to the note. I'm not a fan. I like to come up with a solution, but what do you think about the note/solution?
I know, I feel like for some people it kind of goes hand in hand that they want to give you the solution, which is okay. Like,
But I think it's okay, but I think what's important for the writer to know is you
writer,
don't have to
yeah,
take that
you don't,
solution.
yeah, I will take every note into consideration.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that I'm going to take your solution, but I think it kind of goes back to like if it was something that like 2, 3 other people are bumping on and they all have a like a similar solution for that thing, that's something worth considering.
Mhm.
But no, I don't, I agree with you. I don't want a solution. I don't want them to like give me all the answers and then I'm going to plug that in unless it's like some crazy genius writer where I would be stupid not to take any of their notes. Um, but yeah, I mean, you also have to know like it's okay to not implement every single note because that will really make your story and script clunky.
Yeah. I remember getting a note once about a script and the person said, you do realize this person has to die. Like this character, you have to kill this character. He has to die. This was
Yeah.
like early on. It just was kind of like a big outline and I was just wanting some notes on structure. I kind of like the idea of getting notes on your outlines before you write, because I think that the better you can make your outline, the quicker your first draft is going to read more like a third draft.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a big fan of outlining. I know there's a lot of people who aren't, but for me, and that's cool. Do your thing. But it was an outline phase and he's like, you have to kill this person. And I'm like, oh, but I like this person. But I was like, you know what? You're right. I have to kill this person. And then another note I got on a different script was like, you know, you have to put this character on the stand. Like she can't not be a part of this trial.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you're right. I have to do that. And it changed everything. And then I remember getting a note from Doug Richardson, as a matter of fact. It was a kidnapping scene. I might have talked about this before, where he's like, you've got to show it, the kidnapping. You can't just have it like you find out he's kidnapped. Like you have to show it. And I could have very easily not shown it in this story, the way it was all structured, but decided we needed to show it. And he's like, but now you need to show it to me in a way that you've never, ever seen it before done on TV or in a film, ever. Tons of people have been kidnapped, right?
Yeah.
I had to come up with a way that had never, ever been done. And he's like, I don't even want to see this script until you've come up with a way. I've never seen this before. So it's okay to take your time. It's okay to digest. It's okay to try to figure it out. Sometimes it takes me weeks to figure out the solution to something like that. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I think I know how to do it. And I did it. And he was like, that's one of my favorite scenes in this script. I've never seen this before. And I never saw it coming, ever saw it coming. So he gave me a note. I like how he gives notes because he didn't really give me a solution. He kind of opened a door for me and said, go that way and don't talk to me until you reached your destination.
Yeah.
And that was really good for me. Like that works for my personality, you know? Sometimes people are going to talk to you and brainstorm solutions with you. Sometimes people don't expect people to do that. They're super busy. They might just be like, here's some stuff, digest and simmer. But I always, always, always recommend to just let them absorb and sink in. And so I have gotten notes before that have made me upset, just not because I was upset with what they said. It's like that moment. And I think every writer feels like this at some point. You thought it was really like pretty close to being done, whatever done means, right? And then you get these notes and you realize it is not. And then you just, like you just got to go back and be in it all over again for weeks. And when you were really kind of in your head, ready to move on. And so those notes sometimes can be just like a kick in the gut. But I've always, always found that even if I don't agree with a note, it's worth exploring it. You know, like I've written scenes just to see when somebody who I respected said, I think you should do this or this in the scene. I think this person needs to be in the scene. I think, you know, maybe you need to do whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, do I not want to do that because I'm sick of this scene and I don't want to write it again? Or do I not want to do it because I don't think they're right? So the only way to find out is to do it. And then when you write the scene, 9 times out of 10, the scene, even if I don't exactly use the, you know, the quote unquote solutions that they gave me, it forced me to elevate the scene and make it better, and always comes out better. And I'm always glad I did it.
Yeah. You just don't want to do the extra work once you
Right.
decided
I
that
want
you're
to be
moving
done.
on. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Notes, it's not easy to give or to receive notes. I mean, it's an
Nope.
art form in a way, and you gotta practice and practice and practice. But yeah, I mean, those who give notes, you know, if you're a first time note giver, you know, don't be negative, don't be mean for
Right.
being and think you're right. And like I said, you know, you should always, like, the one receiving the notes should always be comfortable in asking questions like, hey, like, what did you mean by this note? So I could dive deeper into it. And you should have an answer for the note you gave of like, this is why I gave you this note, X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I mean, I guess the next step for those, it's like finding those people that you trust.
Yeah. And once I get my notes, I open up the script in whatever software it is you use. And I put the note right in the screenplay. And I try to each note, like, so say I've got like 3 people reading the script, that version, that draft, right? So I go in and I create a note and I make sure I put like who said it, like who said it, put it right in the spot in the script where it is. And then when you add, and I do it for the whole script, like whatever that one person A said, and then I do it with person B and person C. And then you start seeing if there's, like you said before, like if there's a pattern. And then one of the things that Doug had said to me in that interview was, you've written what you think is an orange, and you're trying to see if your reader thinks it's also an orange or if they think it's an apple. And but if you give your notes out to, you give your script to somebody and you bunch of people and you get the notes back, and 4 out of 5 say this is a great orange, like this is, they understand that it's an orange.
Yeah.
But the last person still kind of feels like this is an apple. It's okay. It's an orange. You're you know what I mean? Like,
right.
no way are you going to get everybody to agree.
Yeah.
But then the trick is when you go into the studio then with your script, your orange, and you give the orange to the studio and they want you to turn it into an apple.
Right. Go find that apple person.
Go find, and he's like, so then you have to just sit and listen. And a lot of times it's when you're getting notes, you know, people always say the note behind the note, like it's not like the producers will often give you a whole bunch of solutions and do this and do that. And they think that they know what they want. And they're also reading a whole bunch of other scripts and probably developing other projects at the same time and blah, blah, blah. They're usually not always going to remember exactly what they said to you, but what they're saying to you may not really be the problem. But there's some reason they're saying that to you. So your job is to figure out, where did I lose them that makes them think this is the problem? Because the problem might actually be in a scene or 2 before that, so that maybe I'm not setting this up right. Maybe I'm not doing something right. So like really listen with a very open mind and just try to figure out, how do I solve that problem? And I know when Doug had given me notes on one of my scripts, and I was very, very humbled, and got the notes back. And then I was getting notes from other people at the same time. And so then I did a whole other rewrite, and I did the notes because I knew I had to do a rewrite. So it wasn't like a shock that I had to do a rewrite.
Right.
And then did this whole thing, this whole rewrite. And I wasn't going to ask him to read again, because why would that, to me, felt like I was taking advantage of our, at that time, it was a pretty new friendship. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I was honored enough that he read it once. But he said to me, like, aren't you going to let me read it? And I was like, oh, well, you want to read again? He's like, yeah, I want to see how you took notes. And he remembered the notes he'd given me, and he said to me, because he really liked the notes that I changed, and he liked my decisions of what I did with other notes that he gave me that I did not implement, and the shift that I had done in scenes around it, that made it work. And so the same person who, especially if you get somebody in the industry to read your stuff, don't assume that since they read it once, they're going to read it twice. If it's somebody, you're just a friend or somebody you met on Twitter or whatever, like, always be considerate of their time. But knowing when to take the note, when to leave the note, and how to find the note behind the note is all part of the kind of art of feedback.
Yeah. It's so much. There's just so much.
And trusting your gut.
Which is tough too, because you will second guess yourself all the time. I usually lean towards whatever makes me feel uncomfortable in adjusting, because I might think like, oh, I'm so close to this thing, I'm not going to change this, it's good as is. Go with that being uncomfortable and actually dive into that and see what you can do. Like your kidnaps, and like you're like, well, I had it planned it that way, but then you kind of open up your world to new possibilities, and that helps the story.
Yeah.
Because usually like the uncomfortable stuff, it makes it a better read because you're so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, notes.
And
feedback.
also remember, like, I think the other thing too, like, is you're not your characters. Like, so like, if they don't like your character, doesn't mean they don't like you. I think in the beginning, a lot of writers tend to write themselves on the page. And so when they get feedback, they take it personally. And I think that, yes, you created this person, you brought this person to life, but this person, your feedback might be giving you some other great ideas to add another layer to that person, that character that you hadn't even thought of. So it might not even be a story note. It could be a note just about the character. Like, maybe, what if you had her doing this? Or even just like, maybe her job shouldn't be being a writer. Maybe your character's job should be being a dog groomer. Yeah. Like, something
also,
else.
That is not a job. Find a real job. Don't be a writer.
All you youngins out there.
For me, I depending on how many drafts I've done on a script and how close I am to the script, sometimes I'm really scared and disappointing my characters. Like, I have, like, there's one script I can think of, I'm like, she's so cool, like I would want to be her friend. And there's like things where, like, I've had notes from people like, well, have her be in this situation. I'm like, no, I wouldn't want to do that to her. Like, like that would suck. But it makes it better, like the read better and the story better. But yeah, I'm always like afraid of disappointing my characters.
I think probably one of the most common notes writers get in the beginning is that they're protecting their protagonist too much. And I from what I've discussed with my friends about writing in their early scripts, that was a consistent problem that a lot of writers had. Like, they protect them too much because they like them, or they're, it's like but they'll beat the crap out of the antagonist or some supporting character, but this character they protect. And if you protect them too much, they can't evolve. They're not getting
Yeah.
pushed enough to force them to change. And so you can't like, you got to get right there, down there in the dirt and like beat the crap out of them and see what they do.
Yeah.
You know, your character's defined by how they behave under pressure. So if you're protecting them, you're never putting them under pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beat them up.
And how they react to things too. Like that's always a thing that it's like always a common note that you probably find yourself giving. It's like make this character the motivation and the activeness, and also like how do they feel in this situation? How are they feeling in this moment? I had one great mentor, and I wish I was still in his workshop, but his biggest note was always like, you'd always find it on your script, like attitude, attitude, attitude. And you're like, okay, I get it, but it's so important. It's like, yeah, that's my character needs to be feeling something, either angry, happy, sad, let down, dying. I don't know.
Not passive.
Don't be passive. Guys, don't do that. Get that out of your vocabulary and mindset and characters. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I asked Doug, like, when you talk about like what acting on the notes, like when do you know to act on a note, and how, you know, how do you digest those notes? And he actually said there were 3 questions he asks.
What are they?
See, I prepared. Aren't you proud of me?
I'm so proud.
I'm actually, can I just say, I'm a little bit lost having prepared. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this because there's a part of me that feels like I'm not having as organic of a conversation because I'm just like, oh, did I say that note? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure I like it.
That's okay. I'll give you feedback after this.
Give me feedback.
Yeah.
Give me feedback on whether I was boring as hell because I was too prepared, and because I really would like this feedback.
Yeah. Well, we'll get the transcript of this and I'll mark it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
you lost me here.
You said fuck off here, but I don't think you really intended to say it here.
Yes.
Bump it up here.
And did you notice that I stopped saying it because I didn't want to overuse it?
Right. Exactly.
You know, you could beat the dead horse kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, his 3 questions. Back to Planner Jeanne.
Boo.
Boo. Yes. Boo. Okay, so he said, what do I want to communicate in this story? So he's always thinking about that when he's reading the notes and reading, like, is he getting that across? You know, and if what he's trying to communicate in the story isn't coming across, then he's got some serious work to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, how am I failing to do so? And how can I communicate it better without changing what I'm trying to convey? So it's just the stuff like we were talking about, like the note behind the note, like obviously they're not getting something. Why aren't they getting it? And how can I write it in a way that they do get it? Because it's also your story. So it's not the readers and story. So they can tell you all they want, all the stuff that they think you should do. Oh, it'd be great if you had her go get a unicorn and jump on it and fly across the sky. And you're like, well, this is a period piece that has nothing to do with unicorns. So just, you know, remember it's your story, be true to your story, but there's ways to still take that feedback and make your story better.
Yeah.
So and I also find like when I'm writing my first draft, I love characters. So like, I really like my characters to get I like to get deep into their heads and stuff like that and really kind of know them pretty well before I write. But a lot of my first drafts are really focused on structure because I don't feel like structure is my forte as much as characters are. So I spend that's probably why I like to outline, because I want to make sure I've got the structure right, and then I can go play. Like I'm writing the novel right now, and I started writing it and then in Nano, and then I stopped because I told you last time, I think I found this really great book that has like translating his Italian letters into English and blah, blah, blah. So I spent a lot of time actually this morning digging in and finding any mention of anybody in his family in the book. So I could really, before I kept going, so I really understood, like I knew facts that happened in this dude's life because it's based on a real person. But when somebody's in the 1700s, you don't really know what his relationships were like with people. But now that I have these letters, I can see like, how did he talk to that person? Did he speak to them respectfully? And everybody was pretty respectful back then, unless they were torturing you for a crime. There was no respect going on, but that's a whole other reckless creative content. We could talk about the reign of terror, which is really messed up, but because I've been doing a lot of research on that too. But I purposely stopped writing, even though I have this great outline, because I wanted to understand these characters more. And so I now have a whole spreadsheet of, their relationship to this person and that person. And the trick with it is learning enough so that you feel like you know your characters, but not getting obsessed with it so that you don't discover your characters while you're writing. So just enough to get you going and then dive in, because you're going to learn so much more. Like I remember writing a script where two people ended up falling in love with each other. And I had no idea that was going to happen. But I'm in the room with them and I'm like, hey, I think there's some sparks flying here, And that's what's fun about like getting notes and doing rewrites, because maybe the reader saw the sparks, but you didn't see it. And they might say, hey, what would it be like if these two characters had a relationship?
Yeah.
And they might see it when you don't see it.
Yeah. There's a project that I've been working on with my writing partner, and we just had some really great feedback from a friend of ours, and he just like totally opened up our eyes to things where we're just like, he was like, you guys, it's an ensemble piece, but he's like, you have too many characters. Like these two characters are basically serving the same purpose. So just make them one character. And it's like, oh, duh. Like we're so deep into it. Like we can't even see that. And it was like our whole thing was like, okay, well, we don't want to be so over the top with these like hints about things and this mystery of the stuff going on in here. And he didn't get any of it. And we're like, oh, like it's too subtle. And he's like, yeah, like if I would have known that's what that was, like, then that makes sense. So it's like, okay, what we think is like kind of over the top is not over the top enough for something like that. But it's like you really hit it over their head with the stuff. But yeah, just like certain things that he was like just giving us notes on this project that were just like, we got off the call with him and we're just like, oh my God, like thankfully we don't have to do like a page one rewrite, but
Yeah.
he write about so much because we didn't see it because we've been so deep in this thing. And going to like point number one of like, what are you trying to communicate? We're like, obviously we're not getting that across like we thought we were.
Yeah.
And then he had a really great note about like serving our ending, because he's like, the ending is cool, but why? You gotta set it up better in the beginning. It really work. Kind of like, okay, that's a really good note too. Like that makes sense.
Yeah. And I
like,
think
cool, make it cool at the top. So
I think one of the trickiest things too is like if you're writing something that's like a thriller or a mystery or whatever, even just a regular story, trying to decide how much to tell and how much to hold back on, and when to tease them and when to tell all. I think like those, I think, are probably the things I agonize over the most sometimes, because it's like I want that, because I'm one of those people like, okay, when I was in college, I'm going to date myself here, but we all know I'm no spring chicken by this point. Okay, so let's get over that. So when I was in college, Luke and Laura and General Hospital were like a really big thing. Okay, so in between classes at 3:00 in the afternoon, everybody would go to Willard Straight Hall up into the TV room, and the thing would be packed, and everyone was watching General Hospital. I always knew what was coming. I could always predict what was coming. And I would turn to my friends and I'd be like, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, that's going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. And one of them said to me, and I was not a writer at this point. I was at the hotel school at Cornell. And they're like, how do you know that's going to happen? I said, because they did that. Like, as soon as they tell one person, as soon as somebody had an affair and they tell one person, I'm like, I give it in a, okay, soap opera world where things take like 6 months to happen. I said to one of my friends, I remember saying to her, mark your calendar for the month of January. This is going to be discovered that they had an affair, because, like, it's like, so for me, because I've always been able to predict stuff in stories, it's very hard. Like, I've got some friends of mine who hate it when I read their scripts, because I'll be like, oh, I saw that coming. I totally knew that was going to happen. They're like, how did you know it was going to happen? We wanted it to be a surprise. And I'm like, because of this. And
Yeah.
then they're like, but we want people to then say, oh, at the end, oh, they planted that. So like, I said, yeah, but for me, I knew it was coming. So like, it wasn't a surprise. Like, so I've never quite known how to do it, because I usually see it. I can
Mhm.
call it out. But I
Yeah.
love it when I can watch a film, and then they surprise me. Nothing thrills me more than to be surprised. And
Mhm.
then to be able to say, oh, now I understand why they did that,
Mhm.
And I can't think of an example off the top of my head because I'm tired. It's been a day, but I think that is like, that's what one of the things you need readers for, to like
Mhm.
really cement whether you got it right,
Yeah.
like, how much do you want and also too, like, how much do you want the audience to know, and how much do you want the character to know? And
Right.
all of that makes me so anxious. It's because it's like a big puzzle that you're
It is-
trying to figure out. And it's when done right, it is beautiful.
Yes.
So you got to, challenge yourself to try to do it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you struggle with that too, or no? Are you pretty good at it?
Oh no, I struggle with that. I'm human. I'm
You
not super.
are?
Thank you. Um, no, I mean that's what like this project, like we're trying to like plant the seeds of things. It's like, okay, like our characters know this information, the audience will know this information, but we're like withholding information from different parties, and it's like
Mhm.
now it's too complicated and it's not as
Yeah.
clear. And but like as you're writing, you're like, oh, that makes sense. And then you get to the end, you're like, oh, here I go. And then you give it to a reader and they're like,
Nope.
what? And you're like, oh, okay. But I think like if I was a brand new writer and I got the notes from my friends that he gave us last weekend, I'd probably be like just
Overwhelmed.
gutted. Like I'm
Yeah.
giving up. What am I doing? I'm in over my head. So it takes practice to get.
It does. It does. And I think that if you get upset about notes, that's normal.
Mhm.
Like, it's normal. Like, don't freak out. It does take, you get used to it. Like, you get used to it as time goes on, like hearing the notes and understanding that the person who's giving them to you is giving them to you from a good place. They want your story to be better. They didn't spend a couple hours reading your screenplay just to sort of be like, oh, I don't give a shit if this thing, I mean, they really want it to be better. Like, whether
Yeah.
it's somebody you paid to give you notes or somebody who, is a friend who's you're swapping scripts with, like, everybody wants it to be better.
Yeah.
And it's fun when you get that note that, changes everything. And it's a simple little thing. And it's like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? And then you do it and you're like, oh my God, everything's popping now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and,
Which is
and,
the best note.
oh my God.
So great. You just get so excited to write again and dive back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best note you can ever get, in my opinion, when somebody gives you back your script and says, that was a really fast read. Like, that note, I love that note. I always try to get that note. And a lot of times you have so many words in your screenplay that you don't need. Like so many. You could think of every word as real estate, and
Mm-hmm.
it has to earn its spot on that page. And there's, when you read some, prose script and you're just like, oh my God, that's so great. And all the verbs are active. There's no INGs. I remember early in my writing, getting a note like that from an agent, like take all those INGs out, like get them out. I don't want to see them. And I was like, wow. And choosing things, instead of the choice of the word instead of walk,
Right. Yeah.
saunters or like use a word that shows personality, that shows
Yeah.
something.
You're a
It's-
writer. Right.
Yeah. First draft, ING
Yeah.
it to death. Do whatever the
Yeah.
hell you want to
Yeah.
do in your first draft. But when
Yeah.
you're doing, before you give it to a reader, clean all that crap up. But like had an article on Script Magazine. I can't remember what it was called, Polishing Your Screenplay or something like that, where I took screenshots of like a page of a section of a scene, and then I crossed out and I'll find it and put it in the link of the show notes so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And I crossed out all the words you don't need, all the crap you don't need, and then how you can shrink the page just doing that. And you haven't changed your story, you haven't cut scenes out, you haven't changed anything except for the word choice to make it tighter, and you could drop 5 pages easily. And also, like, there's that when you have like okay, so like if you look at your descriptions, and so say you've got like, I try never to go over 3 lines of description. But sometimes, you have to, but if you've got, look, so say you've got 3 lines and then you've got a 4th line that just has 1 word on it.
Yeah.
Just find every place in your screenplay that has that and move that word up. As a matter of fact, we were talking about this on, it's something I've been doing for a long time, but Spike Scarberry mentioned it on our symposium that we did the other day, called, which you guys have to watch because it's stinking awesome. We had our first debate where we debated what was more important, structure or voice. And what was really interesting is I thought the audience all was kind of leaning one way in the beginning, but by the time they were done, they were kind of like, oh, well, maybe, it was really, really good conversation. But Spike was saying this too, that like, if you get that hanging word and you do that throughout your whole screenplay, you'll cut like 5 pages out and you haven't done anything except, again, word choice. So, and then all of that, the more pages you cut out, the faster the read feels. And, because readers all look and see how many pages it is. I even do that for a book I'm reading.
Yeah.
That's what sucks about Kindle.
You're just like, no.
It's like, how many pages are this? Is this book? And but when you're in the bookstore and you hold it up and it's like this big thick thing, you're like, oh, maybe another one.
Yeah. Or like, I could do this. It's it's like killing your orphans. It helps, and it helps you.
Orphans, that's the word.
Yeah. Think of like word choice and like, okay, how do I tighten this up? Can I distill this down to 1 line? I wrote a article for Writer's Digest magazine about, less is more on the page, because you do want it to be a fast read and you want it to be very clear. But it's hard to do that. Like I was like, try to distill it down if you can, like description or even dialogue, like 4 lines at least, like that's your max, like your goal. And if you go past that, it's too much. Unless there's a rhyme and reason of why you need way more description, but like you're not writing a novel, you're writing a screenplay. Try to make it visual and active.
And as a matter of fact, the other day I saw somebody had posted a 1 page of their script and there's this huge chunk. And I immediately was like, it just felt heavy. Like it just felt heavy. Like they, you want a lot of white on the page because it makes people, it's just a quick read, makes you, feel like you can read it fast. Here's another tip. that Doug taught me. I went to his house once because he was attached as a producer to one of my screenplays. And I went to his house for a week to do a big, deep page one, rip this bitch apart, rewrite, restructure the whole thing and, whatever. So I'm at his house, we're tearing the thing apart and putting it all back together. And I'll tell you a couple of things. When we put it back together, one of the things he said was, pitch it to me. And I said, what? And he's like, pitch the new structure, pitch the story to me with the new structure, pitch it to me. And so he had me put all the index cards up on a cork board. And because I guess they do this in Pixar.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
he's like, pitch, just give it to me. So I pitched the whole thing. And when you do that, you can find the holes, like saying it out loud. Like, you always have to realize, oh, how did I get there already? I think I missed something, And so that was really good. And another one he taught me was the importance, and I've written about this because it's such great advice. Character introductions, like how you introduce the character, as opposed to only mention stuff like what they're wearing or whatever, if it's important to the plot. You don't get deep into the physical attributes because you want to let the casting director do their job. But what you're trying to do in the character introduction is focus less on physical and focus on the character being a badass, not if they need to be a badass, but like be just so engaging. You want to describe the character in really unique and different terms. So, and in such an engaging way that the actor is going to just read because that's the first thing they're going to do. Say you're trying to get an actor attached and their agent sends the script to actor, I don't know, pick one, whatever.
And Brad, Matt.
Whatever, exactly. So they send the script to them. And the first thing the agent is going to do rather, is go right to the character description to see, is this something that my client would be engaged with? And the actor is going to do the same thing, go right to where they first enter the scene and read who they are, like, who am I? And if you can, that's like the one area where I feel that you've got a little leeway, like to be creative and really use your voice to, pull them in and, introduce them like they're a movie star.
Yeah. 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 I've been reading some of the screenplays that from the recent releases of movies right now. And I just read the one for Tender Bar, written by William Monahan. Actually, I just had to speak with him a couple of days ago, and the script is so lean. It's disgusting. Just like, because it's so visual too. Like, he's very methodical about like what he's saying. And it's an adaptation from a book. So it's like, how are you able to take a chunk, a chapter, and put it into 3 words and you get it? And you get like he's like painting the characters, and there aren't like he's wearing a plaid shirt and wearing dirty shoes and and it's like, we don't care about that.
No.
Get part of it. And it was just like, I love this. Like, I don't know, sometimes reading screenplays for me, especially from movies that I like really enjoy, just get me really excited.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm gonna do that. I think I can pull that off now. Like, I'm inspired to do better on the next one, what I can do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm reading like Sorkin's Being the Ricardo script. Again, it's just like, I hate you, Aaron, because you're so good. But like, obviously it's taken years of practice for him to get to where he is. But yeah, I mean, read professional script. I mean, the Tender Bar one, it's like, it's not perfect in any way. Like, there's typos and stuff, but like, William Monahan can do whatever he wants because he's William Monahan. But it's also just so great. It's just such a great example of what you can do and what you can do with words and be visual and proactive on the page.
And I can hear somebody now saying, but what about Quentin Tarantino? His scripts are like 150 something pages long and blah, blah, blah. He can do that because he's directing it. He's not submitting it to New Line to see if they'll green light it. You know what I mean? Like he's Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. I will
You know?
say it though, like for his scripts, because they are very hefty. If
Mhm.
you're looking for writing dialogue, he's your guy because he has a way of just making it work and be snappy and
Mhm.
capture those character voices. Like Reservoir Dogs, I've probably read that script like 20 times. And
Mm.
again, it's super thick, but the dialogue is like that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go on, and if you're looking for screenplays to download, if you go on scriptchat.com, I have a link. I think it's right in the navigation for, free scripts to download or whatever. And it's a post that gives you all different ways that you can find them online.
Yeah.
So go look at that. And I'll put that in the show notes too.
Yeah. Read, and get notes. Get notes from people you trust. Give notes to people that you trust.
Yeah, pay it back. Don't just take.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And always ask questions. Just always be curious about what you can do better and making your script better and what you can do better in giving notes to make sure it's clear to those who are receiving it.
And something else I did once, I was cleaning out my office and I found like all these old notes for like old scripts and I pulled them out and I was reading through the notes to see if the scripts that I had written years before, see if there was any consistency with the kind of notes I was getting.
Mm-hmm.
Like to see if I was addressing some basic craft stuff that I didn't have right in the beginning. And to see then comparing like maybe the first set of notes I had ever gotten from somebody in the industry in the know to the last set of notes I had gotten to see like, is there any similarity? Is there anything that maybe I'm consistently messing up?
Mm-hmm.
And if nothing, and over a long period of time like that, it'll just make you feel good because you'll see how far you've come.
Yeah.
Like sometimes that's a good thing to do, to remind yourself how far you've come.
That is very important. Yeah. And you'll definitely hopefully see some growth in your writing and read your own stuff too. That's important. Like don't just send off drafts to people without going through and proofing it and doing your due diligence before giving it to someone who's paid for feedback from it, because they're like, you don't want them spending their time looking at typos. You'd rather them be focusing on the story and your characters. I've seen that before where I've done coverage professionally and it's like I'm so distracted by the number of typos and misspelling and just like formatting stuff, or just like I'm thrown off. Why is this character have 3 sections of dialogue and it's dual dialogue with them? Like pay attention, like make it so that I can read it and really give you useful notes. Because that's important too.
I thought of something and I can't remember what it was. And I didn't have it written down. I didn't plan on saying it. And oh my God, now this planning thing has messed my whole head. Ugh, this podcast is over.
And fuck off. What was it?
I don't know.
I hate it when that happens. You're gonna like remember in the middle of the night and you're like, that's what it was.
Oh, you were
You
saying
could
something.
splice,
What were you saying? You were saying,
like
what were you saying?
proofing your scripts before you send it out.
Yeah, the typos are distracting.
Typos.
I don't know. Couldn't have been that important.
Or it was.
So what's your feedback on me preparing for the podcast? Should I not do this ever again?
I actually thought it was pretty good. I loved that you brought in some like actionable stuff too, especially from like Doug Richardson, who's also very awesome. And it just helps like us figure out like talking points. I think that's nice.
You
It
didn't
keeps
say
us on
anything to
track.
make me cry. What's wrong with you? Where's the harsh feedback?
I mean, I don't have anything. Like
I know.
I want to find something, but I can't. Like, I'm just telling you the truth. I'm being honest.
I don't want honesty. I want brutal feedback.
My brutal feedback is I feel like you're pressuring me into being mean. And I don't like it.
I'm a bully. See, when I plan, I'm a bully.
Trust me, you don't want me to be a planner.
No. No. Okay, well,
I think that's it. I mean, I hope like the lead up of us being like, we're gonna do a feedback episode was well worth tuning in for.
well, here's an idea. How about y'all give us feedback on our feedback and tell us what we missed? So when we tweet this out and you listen to it, tweet us back. Maybe I don't want to say that.
Well, what if we did like a
Twitter's
script
mean.
a script chat night one of these Sundays and we can do like a live quick
Oh,
session
yeah.
about feedback.
Yeah, let's talk. You come on script chat one night and we'll talk about giving and getting feedback.
Yeah.
And we'll tell people to watch this first.
Yeah.
Listen to this
Do
first.
not tune in to the live tweet storm if you haven't watched or listened to this.
Then we'll have like 2 people. Will that get us to 100,000 downloads faster?
It better. Yeah. Tell your
'Cause-
friends, like, subscribe, tell your mom. Like, it's easy.
don't
Tell your
care.
mom to like it. It's just, that's an easy subscribe. They don't even have to listen.
No, just
Your mom will
download
be like,
it.
Oh, your mom's like, oh, you're into that? Okay, I'll do it for you.
Your hairdresser, your dry cleaner, although no one uses dry cleaning anymore after COVID, we're all in sweats.
Yeah.
Your mailman,
Ooh.
definitely tell him
Or
or her.
Yeah.
Because although they might go postal.
and there it is.
Podcast is over.
Oh man.
Reckless Creatives is a Pipeline Artist original podcast. Like, subscribe, and follow us on social media at Pipeline Artists. And find more info at pipelineartists.com/listen. Until next time, stay reckless.